Being mentored is a privilege. Oftentimes we find ourselves trying to grow in our relationship with God, grow in life and things of that nature. And sometimes we find ourselves saying, I wish I had a mentor. But today I want to ask you the question of, are you able to be mentored? Because even though we say that we want to be mentored, we have to ask ourselves the hard question of, can we be mentored? And so today I want to talk about what it looks like to actually be mentored and preparing yourself for a mentor. So welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things you, me, and Jesus, because we're here living this life on earth, having a real human experience. And we're oftentimes just trying to figure out, how in the world do we do this every single day, week, month, sometimes up to the minute. All right. And so we're here on the show every single week, just kind of sharing my life and sharing my experiences, my thoughts and all that. I oftentimes will tell you the things I have gone through, things that I'm going through, and areas where I'm like immature, areas where I am like not my best self, areas where I would not want to be placed on television because I'm here living this human experience. And so today I wanted to have the conversation asking you, are you able to be mentored? Okay. So when I look at being mentored, what does that look like? Everybody has their own definition of what that looks like. When I think about me being mentored, I think about it as I am living this life. I'm navigating this life, and I'm inviting someone that is not my parents. Okay. I'm inviting someone into my life to speak into my life. It's not that I'm saying this person has all the answers, this person has a perfect life, or that I'm talking to them over talking to God. But it is, here's someone that I just value them, the walk that they're walking and all the things, and I am willing to submit to them in some type of way and allow them to speak to me, to speak to my life. And so when I think about what does that look like as a mentee to be mentored, I think it comes down to a couple things. Okay. So when I look at all of the times that I've been mentored by people, honestly, I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to being mentored, which is how I have even the experience to share with you. I've made a lot of mistakes. Some of those mistakes are not actually being ready, like thinking I needed a mentor and just not being ready, not being open or willing to listen to someone's advice and actually take it, being able to receive constructive criticism without taking it personally or acting out. And then having my own close and personal relationship with God outside of this person. I've been a whole lot of things. I have made men over God. I've made my mentor over God, and I've just made myself and my work over God, just fully transparently, right? And those are 3 recipes for disaster. Big recipes for disaster. And those caused me some seasons of very different types of circumstances or situations that I probably would not have had to experience or endure had I been ready for an actual mentor, right? Or had I just had my own relationship with God. So here's the things that I feel like that if you're kind of measuring yourself up and saying, okay, I am ready to be mentored or willing to be mentored or able to be mentored, here's what I would say that looks like. First things first, what is your relationship like with God? Okay, that's number 1. What is your relationship like with God? Because you want to have someone come into your life that is adding value to the relationship you're already having with God, adding to the conversations that you're having, adding to all of that, okay? Because, one of the things that I've learned about being mentored is that mentors are people too. They're here on this earth living this human experience just like you. They are awesome and also beautifully awful, right? They are, they're they're just human, you know what I mean? And when we look at humans, they live a normal life. They have the opportunity to say yes and no, do right, do wrong. They just have all this stuff. They have the opportunity to get it right and get it wrong. You know, they have the opportunity, just like us, to repent every single day for whatever's happened the day of or the day before or whatever, right? Which means that they have permission to be imperfect. So when people come into our lives, they're going to come into our lives with all their imperfections, as we have all of our imperfections. And so because of that, it is so important that you already have a great relationship with God for yourself. Okay? Because you could meet somebody and they say yes to mentoring you, and their relationship with God is awful. Right? You don't know it because it seems like it's amazing, but it could be awful, right? You could meet someone who is preying on you, right? They see the gifts calling on your life and they're like, ooh, I want to become a part of that. Not saying everybody's like that. I'm just giving you some negative examples and then positive ones as well, right? So they could be preying on you, right? 3, they could just be off. Right? They could be wounded and whatever's happened in their life, because we all experience trauma in our lives. And so oftentimes our past clouds our judgment. It clouds our ability to hear and experience. I'll give you an example. I was talking to God yesterday because I had this social media manager, been training her for 3 months. And then all of a sudden last week she quit. And so she put a resignation in. And so I went to her and was just like having this conversation about, you know, adjusting her role. That way she could still be with us. And when I prayed and asked God about it yesterday, I said, is she going to stay? And he goes, she's going to stay. Okay, great. And when I reached out to her, she said, I'm going to go. And I was like, clearly God's not wrong, right? Clearly I got it wrong, right? And one of the things that I know about myself is that when I am emotionally invested in something, I often will hear God wrong, because I hear what I want to hear. Right. And in that instance, I wanted her to stay. So that's how I was able to hear God wrong. So when we look at our mentors, right, they're imperfect, right? And it's not like they're trying to do anything bad. Like in that example, it's that we're just emotional creatures. And sometimes our emotions can cause us to hear things wrong. You know what I mean? And so you have to have your own personal relationship with God, because that mentor could be amazing. They could not be preying on you. They could actually want the best for you. And if you're relying on them to hear God, listen, they could be emotionally invested in this great thing happening for you, or you not doing this thing, and their emotions cloud their judgment, right? It could happen, right? We all know about that in 2020, when all the prophets are talking about, God said that Trump is going to win. He's going to win. He's going to win. And then when he didn't, they're like, the votes are going to get overturned. He's going to be inaugurated. And that didn't happen. Right. And I'm not for or against. I'm apolitical. I just, whatever God tells me, that's what I do. I don't go on either side. I don't care. Black, white, Christian, non-Christian. Jesus tell me what to do. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to pray. Period. Okay. I had to say that. So like, they were emotional. They were emotional about whatever it was they felt like God was saying. And guess what? That did not come to pass. You know, now for whatever reason, I don't have all the answers, but just the truth, the fact is they prophesied X did not happen, right? And so our mentors can get it wrong too, because they are human. They are not God. They are not God, Jesus, or Holy Spirit. They are humans living a human experience along with the rest of us. No matter what prophet, apostle, whatever their title is, they can get it wrong too. So you have got to have your own relationship with God so that you can hear and experience God for yourself in addition to that mentor, okay? The second thing to know is, are you able to be mentored? Is, how do you handle constructive criticism? Okay, how do you handle constructive criticism? Because that mentor's job is not just to tell you what you want to hear. That mentor's job is to be with you, do life with you, help lead and guide you. And sometimes they are going to need to say things that you don't want to hear, right? Sometimes they're not going to say yes to something or whatever's going on. And you may think that you're all peaches and cream, and they come to you and say, hey, you're actually a little rough around the edges and A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You've got to ask yourself, the question is, how do you handle constructive criticism? Because your goal of being a mentor is to go from here to here, which means there's a gap in between here and here, and somebody's got to help you get there, which means you've got to become another version of yourself. Okay, so for me right now, I am trying to lose weight. I am 50 pounds heavier than I've ever been in my life. And so my knowledge of being able to lose weight, and in 43 at menopause age is like down here, because it's like the menopause body is very different than my 20-year-old, 30-year-old body, right? And so my knowledge is down here, and I'm trying to get up here. That means there's a gap in learning what it is I need to do to go from here to here. And I have to be willing to let someone speak into my life and say, hey, it's important for you to eat this and not this, do this and not this. And I have to be willing to allow them to speak, right? So it's kind of like me with my relationship with God. When I first got a first mentor, like one of them, I don't even know what was really going on with her, but I think she had something that's going on with her. Now that I know something was going on with her. And she came along into my life, and she was encouraging me to see things, experience things, and whatever, right? Which is awesome. And she didn't really give me much constructive criticism. I just knew something was off. I just didn't know what. The next one that I had that came along, she was very constructive. Now, the downside with her was that she could give me constructive criticism, but it's like, how do I describe this? She didn't know how to say things and be nice about it. You know what I mean? Initially. And then eventually over time, she started to really learn how to handle me, how to just tell me exactly what I need to hear in a way that didn't like just hurt me so much to hear. Does that make sense? And, that was a blessing to be able to hear certain things, someone tell you to do certain things, and you don't understand it or it doesn't feel good, but you can say, okay, thank you, I will work on that. You know what I mean? Because that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Now, with her and I, we had these little moments of like when she would say things that I didn't like the way she said it. I had to remind myself that, hey, this person may not have said things the way you wanted them to say it, but how can you try to chew up what they just said and spit out the bones? Chew up the stuff that you needed to hear that you didn't like or whatever that you really need, but in the manner that they say it, maybe you can spit that out. That way you won't be offended by how they said what they said, but you can take what they said and actually transform your life, So that was not easy. That was an extreme process, right? That's kind of like my ex-husband. He wasn't my mentor. He was my husband, but he would say things and in a way where I just chucked the whole thing. I didn't want to chew up the meat, nothing. Right. And so I wasn't pliable, in my opinion, as it pertains to him and our relationship. That's not why we got divorced. I'm just being honest about that, And so I wasn't pliable. I wasn't willing to be mentored with him in that type of way. And so the truth is that where are we? Are we willing to allow people to speak into our lives and say things that they need to say, even if they don't say them right the way we want them to say it, but we can take it and we can allow it to mold and shape us, right? That is the question that you got to be asking yourself about that in particular, okay? And then the last thing you got to ask yourself is that, like, are you willing to actually do what the mentor is telling you to do? Okay? Are you willing to do what they're actually telling you to do? Because again, they're going to tell you to do some things that you don't like, that you may not agree with, right? And if you have that relationship with God and then you have that trust and able to chew up the meat, spit out the bones, then you have to be willing to do what they tell you to do no matter what. Right? That's like right now I'm in a new church here in Houston, Texas. They don't know me. I don't know them. And right now they're not mentoring me. I'm way too new there. I'm just trying to get my feet in the city. But eventually I'll submit myself into leadership at some point in time. And I guarantee you that they're going to have a way of doing things that I may not be used to, that I may not agree with. But if I'm going to operate in their church, I've got to submit my way of doing or whatever and come under what it is and how they're doing what they're doing. And I have to be willing, right? I have to be willing to do what they invite me to do. Right? It's kind of like, I'm not saying this is going to happen. Just giving you a funny example. I was watching a video last night of the church, and they had a special guest come in talking to people about, or women about how to get found by a husband. And they were like, you can't be at home. He's not going to break into your house, which is what I always say. You got to go out and be out and about because somebody got fired. You got to go out. You can't just go always be at home. And, you know, I'm being funny. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I have to be willing, right? One, to go to the singles event they're having, I think next week or whatever. And I have to be willing. Let's just say that I meet somebody at church and they say, hey, and let's just say I'm being mentored by this person. And this person says, hey, I think you should go out with such and such. Right? Like, even if he is not my type, he does not look like, sound like, be like, nothing. Right? I have to be willing to at least have a phone call with this man. Right? At least say, okay, I will meet up with him before church and have coffee, water, because I don't drink coffee. Right? I am willing to do that. I am not willing to go and spend my lunchtime or whole dinner 2 hours. That's not me. I'm like, let's have a conversation, a quick conversation to determine, is that initial 45 minutes worth going into an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, right? I have to be willing to do something that I would not normally do, right? We all have a type, right? Like, I like men of all races, right? But I still have a type, right? I like a man who's like muscular, who plays ball, who dresses well, who smells like cologne, who's groomed well, you know what I mean? His teeth look good. He doesn't have dirt underneath his nail, you know, just certain things, you know what I mean? But I have to be willing to go out with somebody who may not be as muscular, who may be taller or skinnier or shorter, who may dress like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I have to be willing, especially if the mentor is saying, you know, I think you might want to go out with this person. Just willing. It's not anything that's going to hurt me, you know? And I have to be willing that they say, you know what? I really think you need to read this book. I know you have gone to this level and done this, but I think you would benefit greatly if you read this book, or if you went to this class, or if you did this and did that. If none of these things are going to put me in harm's way and they're not going to cost me a bunch of money that I don't want to have to spend, or God isn't telling me to spend, then I have to just be willing to just say, okay, sure, I will try it out. I will go. I will read. I will take that class or whatever, right? And so, because if we're not willing, then we're not willing to be mentored. We're not able to be mentored, because the purpose of a mentor is to take us from here to here, right? If I mentor somebody in God today, I'm going to ask them a series of questions before I ever say yes. And all their answers is going to depend upon if I will mentor, if I can mentor them. Because here's the deal. You want that mentor to spend their time helping you, but that's still their time. They get to choose what to do with their time. And if you're not willing to be honorable and utilizing the time and doing what they're telling you to do, they are wasting their time, right? I've had so many people that want me to mentor them, and I just say no. Why? And I'm like, well, because I told you to do this one thing like 6 months ago. You still haven't done that. So I'm definitely not going to spend no time with you, because I gave you just one thing and you haven't done that. I can't help you because you're not even willing to do what I told you then. What makes you think you're going to do what I tell you to do every day, every week, every month? And they always go, and I'm like, exactly. Like, no, that's until you are willing to do that last thing I asked you to do. I can't do anything else. And I would expect someone's going to mentor me to tell me the exact same thing, because we all only get 24 hours in a day. We work, we have our personal lives, and then we have this free time, and people get to choose what they do with their free time. Point blank, period. And we have to be okay with that if a person's like, nope. You know what I mean? So I want you to ask yourself those 3 questions. 1, do you have a close relationship with God? Right? And then number 2, can you take constructive criticism without taking it personally? And 3, are you willing to do what your mentor tells you to do, even if you don't agree? If the answer is no, then no, you are not able to be mentored at this point. Okay. Again, this is not you jumping off a bridge that they told you to. This is not you giving them all your money. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if your mentor told you to go to this class or told you to read this book or stop doing that with that person, or you know what I mean, these things that mean good for you, if you're not willing to do that, answer is no. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me in the comments, where are you with this subject? Are you being mentored? Are you mentoring others? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me in the comments. Okay. If you are listening to the podcast, please write a review. I keep waiting to see reviews and I'm not seeing anything. Okay. I love you. Make sure you guys subscribe here on YouTube, and I'll see you guys next time.